ESPN has come out with its top 74 players in honor of this being the league's 74th year. And Alan, Melo's not even in the top 74.
Which is why the list already is dumb. Like, I hate lists to begin with. I get suckered into them all the time, though, don't we? Like, you get another one and you're like, I'm not clicking on it. I'm not doing it. And you're like, all right, well, let me see what they did. Can't really argue with their top 10. I think their top 10, the grouping is right. I think number 1, Jordan, is right. But you see the list and you've seen certain things. Melo not being on it is absurd. You know, for his generation, he was one of the best players in the league. And to count these last 3 years where he bounced from team to team and, you know, his game had changed completely, you know, is unfair. When you think about the bulk of his career, he was an all-star and one of the top players in the league. So you can't make the argument of why he wouldn't be among the top 74. I mean, it's 74 players. Yeah, I'm not even going to go through lists because it's disrespectful to name guys who shouldn't be on the list compared to him. I don't want to do that. But Wally, I mean, you played against him. I mean, this guy is definitely good enough to be among some of the names that we see on that list.
Yeah, but that's why you have to look at the list and you have to figure who's Melo better than in his generation. And I look at 2 guys, a guy like Steve Nash, who was 2-time MVP and played in a great system with Mike D'Antoni. He never won a ring like Carmelo Anthony. We certainly weren't, you know, we weren't as scared about, you know, the scouting report when we thought about Steve Nash on the Phoenix Suns. We pointed at Amari Stoudemire first and slowing him down first before Steve Nash. Now, yes, Steve Nash was a great facilitator and he became a league MVP under Mike D'Antoni's system. But when you look at the bulk of his career, he was the 3rd or 4th option when he was in Dallas behind Michael Finley, Dirk Nowitzki, and company. And you compare him to a guy like Carmelo Anthony, who when I think of when I played, and that's my era, Carmelo was a top 3 player for 7, 8, 9, 10 straight seasons. He was a 12, 13-time All-Star. I mean, you know, you got to compare certain guys. And the fact that Steve Nash is so securely in there at number 30 all-time and Carmelo doesn't make the all-time list, I think that definitely makes you scratch your head. Carmelo, just his impact on and off the floor was big time. And, you know, he had a pretty prolific career for a long time. And even when he was with the Knicks, even though he didn't win games, he still scored a lot of points. And he still was a big impact. And he still instilled a lot of fear in his opponents with what he was capable of doing on the basketball floor.
All right, here's my prop for today. Can you guys see this? This side says total value. The blue is total value. The red is peak performance. Now, I'm obviously deferring to you, though, Wally. But I just wonder, when we talk about Melo in particular, right, his peak performances were fantastic. We know he could fill it up. But total value, are we assessing total value on being able to get your team deep into the playoffs? Like, with that, like, what you know what I'm saying? That's what they said.
I'll answer that, Monica.
Well, how far did Nash go?
Yeah,
Nash made the Western Conference Finals, and that's how far Carmelo went.
Great point.
Chris Paul is number 40. Chris Paul is number 40. Has he made a finals yet?
No.
Okay, but would you argue that position, there's like this point guard bias thing because Chris Paul, Steve Nash, they're the floor generals. They get all this credit for in terms of positioning and setting up. And they're guys that, for the most part, well, Chris Paul has bounced around here as of late, but there's definitely point guard bias in that.
I think you're right, Monica. And first of all, I think Amani needs you to come help teach his kindergartner a little bit there because that's perfect what you're doing. You have visual, you keep them attentive.
Yeah, can we do pie
chart
times circumference or whatever
it is there? It's just, we're going to let Amani, he's going to reach out to you and see if you can come help out. A little tutoring session via Zoom. But what you also showed, though, was peak performance and value. And I'll ask you this, in all due respect, how have the Knicks been since Carmelo Anthony has left?
That's the point.
And what were they before he arrived?
So then let's go back to Wally's first point when we had to figure out, and Wally made some suggestions on who wouldn't be on the list. But if we look at total value and compare what some of the guys on the list versus Carmelo were able to do, now Wally's saying Nash only got to the Western Conference Finals too. It's apples and apples.
And Nash also played with superstar after superstar after superstar. I mean, he played with Dirk Nowitzki for years in Dallas, Michael Finley, who was a great player in Dallas. And then those teams in Phoenix, they had Sean Marion, they had Amari Stoudemire. I mean, they were loaded, those teams. So you also got to compare, you know, the teammates that you were surrounded by. And Carmelo Anthony was never surrounded by a lot of talent throughout his whole entire career. And he carried the load big time. And, you know, his credentials individually speak for themselves.